Hiya! Welcome to this, my 37th episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, and in this installment, titled Feeling Adventurous, I talk about a fun find I found in my classic collection, the Sarah Jane Adventures. A seemingly innocuous scrap of lost recording makes me question the completeness of my collection, plus comments on Eli Stone, American Psycho, the Charmed reboot, and The Good Place. Welcome to the show!
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
As for what's been going on with me, last weekend Ralph and I were out of town for our anniversary. 3 years, 7 years this month altogether, such a sweetie, and our first trip ever to California. So much fun. So, I didn't make a lot of progress with this project, but I think, on balance, that's probably just fine. I did manage to watch quite a bit of television this past week, got the DVR boiled down a little, and there's no due date on this thing, so the main thing is just to keep going. I do know that I've got a bunch of photos and such to go through from our trip, so I'm not entirely back on track, but it's a beautiful day, the sun is shining, the coffee shop is empty, they've got Kim Ritchie singing I Will Follow, and oh wow, Tracy Chapman singing Sing For You, and I'm definitely ready to talk about this stuff.
Friday Night Feature!
As I said, I didn't make a lot of progress on my collection this time, but I absolutely encountered something worth chatting about. In 2006, Elizabeth Sladen returned to the television landscape, well, the part of it I was aware of anyway, in the third season Doctor Who episode School Reunion, which envisioned a sort of Borg assimilatey type race called the Krillitane. I was easily as excited about encountering Anthony Stewart Head from Buffy as I was for Sarah Jane Smith, although David Tennant's Doctor made up for any emotional outpouring on my part. Sarah Jane Smith. Brilliant. Following that appearance, it seemed like someone at the BBC twigged that there were a lot of people watching the show who loved the nostalgia she represented, and in 2007, very hastily slapped together a show with a placeholder title, The Sarah Jane Adventures, that I am honestly shocked to learn from Google lasted for 53 episodes. I am not certain I was aware of so much as a handful of these episodes, running, I believe, on Sci-Fi rather than BBC America, and I think I may have actually stopped watching before they stopped airing. But despite my personal disinterest in the series, I'm glad it was sufficiently beloved to carry on as long as it did. I know Ms. Sladen was in poor health by the end, succumbing to cancer in 2011. I also know that she looked amazing throughout the run of the show. Surely that level of professionalism and dedication propelled what could have been a nostalgia cult fantasy to a new generation of fans, and may have provided some of the energy that spawned Class, the homeroom alien teen drama Doctor Who spinoff from 2016 that also failed to draw my interest all that much. As it was, the Sarah Jane Adventures was a kid-friendly sci-fi show that clearly held enough attention on its own beyond its parent production and drew Sarah Jane Smith back into active service, including follow-up appearances in The Stolen Planet and Journey's End in 2008, and a final cameo in the John Sim Blatherwalk The End of Time Part 2 in 2010. But yeah, regarding the Sarah Jane Adventures, I feel like I do probably have more episodes in my collection than just the pilot, The Invasion of the Bane, which I discovered on disc 560. And while I rejoiced at her comeback and at seeing Sarah Jane Smith on my screen again, I was not especially thrilled with this production. I could absolutely see the draw, recognizing I was not in the target audience, but I didn't remember just how disappointed I was with it until I pulled it up for this Friday night feature. Tweeny-something Maria Jackson and her father, Alan, who reminds me of no one so much as Steve from Blue's Clues, move into their new home in Ealing. They meet the standoffish Sarah Jane Smith, who lives across the road. In the middle of the night, Maria sees lights in the sky, sneaks across, and sees Sarah Jane speaking with a floaty alien. One on loan, I think, from Torchwood, but don't quote me. Neighbor Kelsey Hooper stops by, wanting to go to town because she is bored. She tells Maria of a magical free bus service to the Bubble Shock factory that makes the most wondrous soda. Everyone loves it because it's made with Bane. So organic, so tasty, so good for you, and so fun. This is going to shock you, but the makers of Bubble Shock aren't what they seem. Despite the planet being awash in wireless, the use of cell phones is prohibited inside the Bubble Shop factory because it will hurt the Bane Mother, a gigantic alien. Yep, that's what's going on, alien mind control through fizzy drinks. And despite the fact that all the other Bane can mask as human through perception filters, the Bane Mother has to be a gigantic eye in the ceiling, like that giant maltreated Ood brain from Doctor Who Season 4, Episode 3, The Planet of the Ood, appearing in this collection on Disc X41. And, oh, callback, that Egg Mother Bazor demon from Bad Eggs in Season 2 of Buffy, which I know I've got the complete disc set, but which has not yet surfaced in this collection. Just more wonderfulness to look forward to. Anyway, Sarah Jane is on the case, confronting Bubble Shock Operations Manager Ms. Wormwood about their product, which resists scientific analysis, as I imagine organic alien mind control chemtech would. She shares a biblical reference of Wormwood's name from the Book of Revelation, a star that fell to earth and poisoned the water. Another secret the Bane are hiding is the proto-human they developed from scanning thousands of children as they toured the factory, trying to make their mind control interface as effective as they possibly can. Maria discovers this proto-human, called the Archetype, while the factory is on lockdown. Apparently even using a cell phone in there will hurt the Bane Mother. Maria and the Archetype escape with Sarah Jane, who heroically evades a murder attempt directed by Wormwood. Kelsey is nabbed and mind-wiped after she reveals Sarah Jane's home base. Wormwood's assistant drives her home and targets Sarah Jane, who has quite the collection of alien tech at her home, including a supercomputer and a portal to a black hole K9 is busy containing near CERN, which, in a whole episode of pseudoscientific nonsense, I consider the worst. No black hole has been created needing eternal containment by Gallifreyan companion tech. Sarah Jane fights off the assailant, and the Bane activate their mind control. An army of zomboid humans lurch at anyone not under the Bubble Shock mind control. Sarah Jane targets the Bane, directing her supercomputer to amplify some otherwise harmless cell signal that, again, our planet is simply awash in. The Bane are vanquished. Sarah Jane is ankle-deep in tweeny-something Padawans and names her adoptive son, the Archetype, now called Luke. Thus, she begins her latest adventure, that of raising a family. I wanted to give the show a chance, and like I said, I'm pretty sure I saw more than the premiere. It was written by longtime Doctor Who showrunner Russell T Davies, and it featured Sarah Jane Smith, who dates from at least 3rd Doctor John Pertwee's run, was a longtime companion 4th Doctor Tom Baker, and when I mentioned that nostalgia crowd up there, I was including myself. Sarah Jane Smith was a reporter when we met her, a reporter assigned to Unit, I believe, who accompanied the Doctor on so many adventures. They wrote her as bright, if occasionally a bit thick, attractive, meant to be a relatable figure included so the Doctor had someone to explain situations to as they encountered them. When she resurfaced in School Reunion, she was a completely different character, hard-nosed, inquisitive, take-no-crap, and appropriately confrontational. After the initial shock of re-encountering the Doctor, she took him to task for abandoning her randomly in Scotland. No explanation, Gallifrey Schmalifrey, she waited for him and he never returned. She basically spent her whole life waiting. He had left K9 with her, a significant expression of alien tech, probably not a great idea, but it eased the transition, particularly when he was needed for a plot point in fighting the Krillitane. Unfortunately, story and character rights in BBC productions are impossibly Byzantine, so despite his coming when he's called, K9 is practically his own show, and who can even get the rights anymore? It seems completely nuts, but the same thing happens all the time with storylines and characters over here, most easily perceived when sprawling franchises attempt crossover events and not all characters and show creators can be brought on board, or movie and television products and universes fail to perfectly coincide. In the meantime, she was open to the possibilities of time and space. Her eyes were open, she knew what to watch for, and over the years she developed alien contacts, acquired alien tech, somehow flew under the radar of both Torchwood and Unit, and became this sharp old bird who looked much younger than her age. So when she returned to helm her own show for 5 seasons, she was much more your outrageously daring aunt than your sweet, vulnerable granny. I'm guessing it worked, but back to my standard complaint, the young adult focus of the show. Doctor Who was at least trying to be a bit more adult in its dramatic themes. Despite the seemingly ineluctable parade of children in distress, the Doctor is called to cuddle and comfort, just off the top of my head: that haunted dollhouse, the empty child, the girl in the fireplace, Fear Her, Amelia Pond, the impossible astronaut, the watch boy and balloon girl in The Family of Blood, the forest in London, along with constant themes like kitty nurses and emoji robots, and, oh wow, half the cast of The Beast Below. When the Penguin conscripts the Red Triangle Circus Gang to kidnap all the children of Gotham, it's scary from the perspective of the parents. When children are threatened in Doctor Who stories, it's scary from the perspective of the target audience. The touch is much lighter, the themes trending more towards suspense than drama, and I understand the Doctor has a lot of children watching. That just has got to be taken into account, but it makes the show a bit tiresome for those of us much longer in the tooth. Not this season, Jodie Whittaker is getting her character established, but I would appreciate a stronger touch from current showrunner Chris Chibnall. As a man my age, one who has gotten to experience the entirety of the series, certainly all the ones I missed, to spend season 12, perhaps, tracing the misadventures of this character, holding a hard eye open to the evolution of Dr. Lore and development, the long history of the show, how storylines developed and became canon, loose ends traced for follow-up. Something beyond what was done in the 50-year celebration. I want to explore Jodie's relationship with everyone she has been. More than fleeting references, more than Adventure of the Week. You can't wrap up everything, but right now there's been as many Doctors as there are episodes in a season, and I think it would construct a perfect season arc, the labors of Whittaker, as it were, to review where she's been and where she'll go next. Just based on mysteries seeded here and there, rather than this endless stream of children in distress we've encountered, along with meeting her daughter. She could even meet her mother. I mean, that would sure put this character into some context. But yeah, much as I loved Elizabeth Sladen, R.I.P., and her toughened take on Sarah Jane Smith, the themes explored in the Sarah Jane Adventures, certainly at the beginning, just seemed too kid-focused for me to get into. I'm glad her exploration of this beloved character more or less bookended her career. I'm glad she toughened her up in the reboot, and I'm so glad it found an audience, but as the show progressed, my reaction was that I was no longer in it. Sci-fi themes overlaid onto playground popularity, fangirl obsessions, bullying, and self-esteem were lessons I'd already learned and simply were not going to hold my interest.
Diving into the classic collection.
In other classic VHS-to-DVD viewing, I encountered a slug of Eli Stone episodes. As I got to watch them briefly while I was cataloging them, I didn't gain a whole lot more insight as to what made me record this series, but in all reality I can see where I might have been drawn in a bit by the lawyer theme. It made for a decent touching off point for the series to explore a broad variety of scenarios and situations. Also, the creative team clearly felt free to craft outlandish, sometimes ridiculous, often quite expensive-looking situations for their cast of characters to experience and interact with: dragons, earthquakes, flash mobs, song and dance extravaganzas. One of these piquant explorations included the introduction of Katie Sagal, Peg Bundy, Turunga Leela, and Gemma friggin' Teller-Morrow, for Christ's sakes, as Marcy Klein, visiting senior partner from the London branch. She cleans up good. At first I actually thought I was watching and listening to Allison Janney. Exploring her IMDb, it seems this isn't her first appearance on a legal dramedy. I'll be encountering her again in this collection when I get to the first part of Season 3 of Boston Legal. Again, something to look forward to. As a point of interest, among the episodes I encountered in this collection, Patience featured lawyer and fabulist Eli Stone with a vision of a giant crowd gathered in, it looked like, Times Square. The newspaper in his hand was dated October 16th, 2018. At the time of the production, more than 10 years in the future. The contemporaneous nature of the date stood out to me, like reading Orwell's 1984 actually in 1984, or watching the 1960s Stanley Kubrick movie 2001 in 2001. Kind of fun to encounter that. Otherwise, not a lot to comment on with this set beyond, oh hey, speaking of Married with Children alumni in unexpected places, less than a second of recording at the beginning of disc 561. Seriously, not more than a few actual frames of anything, but I could see like a scrap of Samantha Who, Christina Applegate in a brightly colored blouse walking quickly down a street with probably Melissa McCarthy as her friend Dina, and the only scrap of voiceover that was audible was, "If it kills, then zap," an opening monologue to the season 4 episode of Medium. less than a second. Not a reference for anything, nothing that would ever be remotely useful if I did try to track it down. Barely an intellectual exercise if I did find it. But oh hell, I figured I had to at least try. I did a Google search on that scrap of dialogue, Samantha Who and If It Kills, and what popped up was not an episode exactly, but a Samantha Who wiki quote, to wit,
I was reading an article the other day, by which I mean I was watching TV, and it said that happiness comes from realizing which things in life you just can't control, and then controlling them, even if it kills you.
When I punched this entire quote into the Giggleator, out popped Samantha Who, Season 1, Episode 12, Butterflies. Cool. So far, not a show that has shown up in my classic catalog, but it would seem a show I probably transferred at some point. Logically, though, it feels like if I dubbed that VHS tape to a disc, I'd have encountered and cataloged that disc somewhere in this collection before recording over it. If I had it, it feels like it would have been cataloged before it got taped over. Well, now I'm intrigued. I'll just have to see if I have a slug of Samantha Who episodes somewhere I recorded from my DVR to VHS at the time that somehow has remained uncatalogued while I transferred other VHS tapes. Ultimately, my classic disc collection will contain all the VHS recordings I managed to transfer. If shows got recorded over and lost, that's going to have happened occasionally and is simply part of my video legacy. Since it seems like this may have happened in this case, good to know. Current collection. When I put the last episode together, I'd just watched the 4th season finale of Better Call Saul, and I knew I had more processing to do. In all reality, Season 4 was simply a season-long transition for the character we met, being alternately hopeless and ridiculous in his talented older brother's shadow, to the scrappy, resourceful grifter we grew to love in Breaking Bad. For one thing, the flash-forwards we saw this season included some from the very end of that series, in color, rather than just the black-and-white Cinnabon world we glimpsed post-apocalypse. This season we found him coordinating what looked like a grassroots movement from a tiny town in Louisiana, a place where, regardless of the condition of the internet at the time of the show, would still have been inaccessible, a letter-writing campaign conducted entirely on a one-way cross-country bus ride, followed up with a boiler room phone bank armed with sob stories meant to seem like a burgeoning PR disaster for a district attorney, and getting charges dropped on one of Jimmy's colleagues. It was an expansion of the kind of grift Bob Odenkirk and Rhea Seehorn as Jimmy and Kim had run on marks at area nightclubs. Jimmy's law license was pulled in the aftermath of a confession he made to his brother Charles regarding some flim-scam artistry he ran to direct a client to his friend, or maybe following a nursing home swindle he orchestrated. I honestly can't remember. He had a lot going on. Jimmy also directed lower-level smash-and-grab scams and sold burner phones to ne'er-do-wells. The season finale has us a year later. The review board finds him charming but unconvincing and denies his application for reinstatement. Kim puts her finger on an issue that has been bugging her throughout. Why does Jimmy seem so stubbornly unmoved by his brother's passing? She said his not even talking about it during the hearing was probably the biggest factor in the board's decision. I can't imagine we won't get some insight on that, but having identified the issue, Jimmy becomes a picture of distraught mourning, overseeing a memorial scholarship, funding a memorial reading room, hosting a memorial dedication, sitting vigil at his headstone, all the outward signs of give a crap that the examining board is looking for him to exhibit, except, as Kim feels fiercely, without the actual give a crap. She is clearly upset by this, but as soon as the examiners change their minds and restore his law license, Jimmy is quite defiantly exuberant, rejoicing in his restored state and ready to get his claws back into the suckers. Oh, and while he's filling out that paperwork, he'll need a DBA. Slippin' Jimmy will be doing business as, you guessed it, Saul Goodman. As in, Saul Goodman. In other recent viewing I've unfortunately recorded to DVD, I had a chance to check out the pilot for the CW reboot of Charmed. Full disclosure, I have attributed the CW's decision to cancel Angel on its renewing the original run of Charmed for 2 additional seasons back in 2005, which isn't valid. Networks make production decisions on all kinds of factors, and frankly, as the years went by, it was clear that Charmed was absolutely more along the lines of the direction the CW was hoping to take things. It looks like the original series premiered about 20 years ago and was off the air by 2006. In the intervening years, the CW has aired a lot of teenage girl-centric fare, transitioning to more superhero fare. A thread of Supernatural picks up exactly where Angel left off in 2005, with The Vampire Diaries running down the middle. Charmed 2018 opens on a couple of college-aged sisters in, I didn't care, a college, and a third biracial sister unknown to them stumbling upon their house, to which she is drawn. The sisters deal with all the new college experiences, rushing a sorority, meeting boys, creepy abusive professors, fight the power, there's feminist energy, and, oh wow, their mother, who has sheltered them all their lives from the knowledge of their Wiccan heritage. Well, she dies, and they encounter a smarmy so-and-so white lighter. So, oh, cool callback to the original series. Oh, wait, he might not be a good guy after all. But given that reality, it's odd that he introduces them to their spell book. Maybe he's running a deeper game. As for their introduction to their powers, they're quite powerful, actually, with the time manipulation and the telekinesis, given their complete lack of training, and for people who minutes ago didn't know from witchcraft, but yeah, they'll get better at it, and the new series will pull in whatever tracks it wants to from the old series, while making the social comments that 10 years later will absolutely provide some necessary updating. I wish them well. I don't need another show to watch right now. I wasn't what you'd call a fan of the original series, and while I respect the direction this seems to be going in, I have to ask, did it kill any chance for the Supernatural spin-off Wayward Sisters? Of course, 14 seasons into Supernatural, did it really need a spin-off set in the upper flyovers? Fans of the original do seem to be hating on this reboot, but I've got to believe that a lot of that is the creative license taken in the reimagination. They start almost completely with a clean slate rather than any real reference to the original beyond the title, and honestly, what's up with that? Though I can't point to anything especially intuitive. Charmed 2? Charmed again? Charmed, I'm sure. It's not writing itself, that's for sure. I think the clean slate reboot may allow for elements from the original to weave in organically as the show establishes itself, if it gets the chance. The show has already been moved from the jammed, crammed, packed full Thursday where it premiered to Sunday nights. If people missed the pilot, they didn't miss much. It's not like they laid in much by way of context. Episode 2 will still have 3 young women confused and tumbled out into a life where they have more power than information and desperately scrambling for both. And you kids have fun with that. I'm out. I've got way too much to watch as it is. This was not going to hold my interest, and besides, I'm already watching one fairly directionless supernatural show on the CW. I encountered a weird kind of vibe mirroring this reaction as I finally got to watch the 2000 movie American Psycho and the not-sequel American Psycho 2 All-American Girl. The original finds Christian Bale as a self-consciously 1980s investment banker Patrick Bateman walking through the corporate world without ethics, reflection, or humanity, empowered and emboldened by the lack of these in the world surrounding him. He is a compelling, disquieting creation, harder to read towards the end when he confronts himself than the cruel savagery he evinces throughout, mainly because where is that coming from all of a sudden? But generally, as serial killer goes, it is wild to watch someone get away with it so blithely, as if he wouldn't be so hopelessly mired in forensic and circumstantial and psychological evidence. American Psycho 2, unrelated except for a thread of Bateman traced from the beginning and then referenced in the end, follows Mila Kunis's feature-length audition for Black Swan. 5 interminable minutes of narration at the beginning indicate this will not be an acceptable follow-up. She basically lists all the people she's going to kill. We watch her kill them all. We discover how she got away with it, reasonably clever, and how she translated that entire experience into a career in law enforcement with the FBI. Gotta say, and this is true of both of them, except for the aspects that made it impossible, they were some fairly engaging storytelling. Also fun to see William Shatner as an ethically compromised college professor. Other shows, well, I loved the costume competition episode of Superstore. Mateo as Tippi Hedren's character in The Birds was genius. Also, I am absolutely coming around on BoJack Horseman. It is bleak, but really cool, especially with what I know is coming about BoJack's character development. I hope Comedy Central got the rights to the whole series. And I've absolutely got more to say about The Good Place than William Jackson Harper walking shirtless through the sprinklers, but I do want to pause at this point and note that if I looked like that, I would insist upon only appearing shirtless. Beyond that, when we left our hapless heroes, Bad Place demon architect Michael, played by Ted Danson, has inadvertently revealed to them that something metaphysical is happening with them. Unable to wipe their memories or take them back in time again, he is forced to explain everything that's happened to them over the past 2 seasons, thus trapping them forever in the bad place. They're ethically compromised. Any good they do at this point won't count because they'll just be doing it to get into the good place. They boiled it down at the top of the episode, Michael and Janet, played by Darcy Carden, putting together a manifesto, everything they've learned in centuries of tormenting this group of 4 humans, and trying to get them out of the bad place and into the good place. "We failed, Janet," Michael said, "but maybe someday someone else might succeed." As the 4 humans explore the new ethical landscape in which they find themselves, there are a few cool exchanges I'll recount here. The first is between Arizona trash bag Eleanor Shellstrop, played by Kristen Bell, scamming a free drink on her not-her birthday from a bartender. The bartender says, "Look, there have to be rules. Every place has rules." Eleanor says, "Fine, here are my rules. Rule number 1, I get to do whatever I want and you all just have to deal with it. Rule number 2, no more Spider-Man movies. There's way too many Spider-Man movies. Too many dorky, twerpy Spider-Men. Rule 3, everyone just leave me alone." The bartender says, "So you just take care of yourself, you don't owe anything to anyone else. If people lived that way, society would break down." Eleanor says, "Yeah, in America, everyone does whatever they want. Society did break down. It's terrible, and it's great. You only look out for number 1, scream at whoever disagrees with you. There are no bees because they all died, and if you need surgery, you just beg for money on the internet. It's a perfect system." Eleanor then finds a wallet on the floor and is going to steal all the money from it and throw it away because it's mine, suckers. But after a year of ethical studies, even knowing it's all for nothing, that it's not going to get her into the good place, she can't just steal money from a found wallet. Which is awesome, and farther along than I was when I found a wallet with $11 in it when I was a kid, probably 8 or 9, and felt for sure like it belonged to me. Finders keepers couldn't understand how it wasn't mine. And frankly, I'm a little horrified at that reaction now because it probably informed a lot of my worldview at the time. I don't know at what point my point of view shifted from found money equals mine to found money equals, oh my god, someone lost it. Maybe they're frantically searching for it. I need to track them down and get it back to them. But since this exact thing was a plot point on The Golden Girls and countless sitcoms through the 1980s and my actual life and, oh hey, the 1946 Capra classic It's a Wonderful Life, it feels like it's probably fairly evergreen. Also, since Eleanor has just been going on and on about looking out for number 1, it does feel like a legitimate point of development for her character. She ends up tracking down the guy who lost his wallet, complaining about schlepping all over town looking for him, but in the end it turns out to have been an emotionally significant return. His daughter had drawn him a picture that was folded up in the wallet, and Eleanor is happy to have been able to help him. Bringing it on home is William Jackson Harper as the brain-broken and sadly no longer shirtless ethics professor Chidiana Gagne, stirring a giant pot full of canned chili mixed with marshmallow peeps and some M&Ms at the front of a lecture hall half filled with his bewildered students. One of whom asks, "Professor, I can see that you're going through something, but exams are next week, so can you teach us anything?" Chidi says, "All right, nerd, you want to learn something? I'll teach you something. I'm going to teach you the meaning of life. How do you like them apples?" Now, over the last 2,500 years, Western philosophers have formed 3 main theories on how to live an ethical life. First off, there's virtue ethics. Aristotle believed that there were certain virtues of mind and character like courage or generosity, and you should try to develop yourself in accordance with those virtues. Next, there's consequentialism. The basis for judgment about whether something is right or wrong stems from the consequences of that action. How much utility or good did it accomplish versus how much pain or bad? Finally, there's deontology, the school of thought that there are strict rules and duties that everyone must adhere to in a functioning society. Being ethical is simply identifying and obeying these duties and following these rules. But here's the thing, my little chili babies. All three of those theories are hot, stinky cat duty. The true meaning of life, the actual ethical system that you should all follow, is nihilism. The world is empty. There's no point to anything, and you're just gonna die, so do whatever. And now, I'm gonna eat my marshmallow candy chili in silence, and you can all jump up your own butts. Another student asks, is that going to be on the test? Chidi responds, yes, and no, and you all get A's, or F's, and there is no test, and you all failed it, and you all got A's. Who cares? Goodbye. Goodbye. And as the students file out, Eleanor appears and says, cool lecture. She summons him back to their little group. In the end, of all people, Eleanor Shellstrop, Merkin, determines that while they themselves won't ever make it into the good place, they can use their insight to try to helping other people build up their good place credits and hopefully keep them out of the bad place. They start by heading to Florida to help Jason, played by Manny Jacinto, track down his father, Donkey Doug, played by Mitch Norito, to help him complete his electrician's degree and stop with the crimes. In the end, this proves unworkable. Donkey Doug is too far gone to save, despite his willingness to step up and save Jason. Rather, Jason focuses on trying to keep his friend Pillboy out of the bad place. I found that Floridians as presented in this show make my head ache, so for me the episode was saved by Chidi trying to break up with Kirby Howell-Baptiste as Simone before he spills the pot full of candy chili about the true nature of the ethical balance of the universe, which was also fun. Eleanor's impression of Simone and Janet are delightful, along with her flirty breakup with her. It's wonderful and well worth tracking down. So many things I've been watching, but I think that just about covers the main items. Oh, American Horror Story Apocalypse, just about the whole show has been flashbacks, and it's hard to keep track of who all's still alive from which storylines, and even which Ryan Murphy productions. I saw on IMDb that at least someone is confident this thing has been picked up for a couple more seasons, so there's that. But yeah, despite the timeline and character confusion, hell, their Halloween-themed episode was more than a month ago. It has certainly stepped up a lot since the opening episode, so I'd say it was worth checking out. And I am officially done with Murphy Brown. Godlover Candice Bergen as the title washout may, however, eventually have some significant social commentary to unload, but it'll be so mired in trite sitcom nonsense and so watered down by network focus panels that, if still identifiable, it will land with all the force of a blown kiss. This show has made itself unnecessary and it may show itself out. And with that, thank you so much for checking in on my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com and past episodes at Apple Podcast. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites or through my VideoFuzzy page on Facebook, or you can follow me at TJVideoFuzzy on Twitter. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.